Hello YouTube and happy Halloween. We are at the final day of Ghostrick week, so if you guys have not been around my channel yet, I have been doing one video every day this week, focusing on ghost tricks, and boy, I gotta tell you, this has been a pretty crazy week, but today we are going to be ranking all of the ghost trick cards uh, from best to worst, and I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently. So I will be doing this by type, and instead of doing monsters first, we are going to start off with the spells. So coming in at spot number 3, Ghostrick Museum. Now, Museum is actually a pretty decent card, and I remember when this card started out, it it really was not too bad. You know, the question was, do you go with Museum or do you go with Mansion? And you know the difference was that Museum puts cards face down and Mansion lets you take half damage. So unfortunately with Museum it's ineffective against links nowadays, and really its best combo is with Ghostrick Knight, but that is also a card that has just sort of lost popularity along the way. So continuing on, I've already sort of mentioned, but Ghostrick Mansion in spot number 2, very nice for reducing your damage by half, and it's the essential field spell card that you go into with the beatdown version of this deck. And finally, for spot number 3, Ghostrick Parade. Now, Ghostrick Parade is just amazing because it gives you a search on every direct attack that your opponent makes on you. Unfortunately, your opponent doesn't take any damage, but that's a small price to pay, especially considering that this is your main card to go into when you're either starting off your combos in a beatdown deck, or it's just your field spell that you entirely run through when you're playing the beatdown. And the other thing that I really like is the fact that it plays a little bit of mind games on your opponent, because your opponent looks at you and they go, well, does my monster have enough attack that it makes sense for me to attack directly and give them a search to hand? And then also just the fact that it can combo so well with Ghostrick Mary and Lantern. Okay, moving on to the traps in spot number 6. Sorry, is Ghostrick Knight. It's a little crazy that like there's only 3 spells and there's only 6 traps when it comes to ghost tricks, but so Ghostrick Knight it's put in position 6 for me just because it doesn't synergize well with Doll, and anytime that you have a card that doesn't go well with one of your main combo pieces, to me it needs to go down in the list. And also, also I'll probably be saying this a lot, but this card is power crept quite a bit by link monsters, and unfortunately that's a lot of the ghost trick cards, and that's why they just don't see much play anymore. But yeah, again, like the fact that all of your opponent's monsters stay face down, like that's really cool. But if your opponent has a link monster, or if they destroy your face up ghost trick monster, well, then you're kind of screwed, and Ghostrick Knight is just a dead card on your field. Moving on, next in the spot 5 is Ghostrick Break. Now, Break does have its benefits. It lets you get 2 of your ghost trick monsters back to hand, but the reason why I have it at spot 5 is because Alucard and Dullahan already do that, and I like to think that they do it a little bit better, because while they only add 1 card, they do add any ghost trick card, not specifically a monster. And then the last drawback of Break is the fact that it has to be a face-up ghost trick, and you know, if your opponent ever Regekis your board or anything and you don't have a Vanish to stop it, then your Ghost Trick Break is just sitting there dead. So unfortunately, this card really only works well if you have like, if you're, again, it doesn't synergize with Doll, and if you are, yeah, and it can be chained with Ghost Trick Scare and stuff, but still, I think that it deserves a lower spot on this list. One of the most versatile cards that I just don't seem to use much is Ghost Trick Go Round, and I really do like this card, but one of its best things that it has going for it is that it is continuous, but it's only once per turn. But still, the fact that it's continuous is, you know, you can keep using this. It's like a Ghost Trick Scare. It's like a miniature Ghost Trick Scare that just keeps staying on your field, and you can reuse it every turn. So very nice. But you know, and it can help with, you know, if you're out of your Ghostrick lanterns and all that stuff, you can use this and still get a search off parade and whatnot. So it is pretty deserving in its 4th spot, just not the greatest card. And now moving on to Ghostrick Renovation. Now Renovation is a nice card that can synergize well with going into Angel of Mischief. The biggest drawback that it has is that you can only use one once per turn. So let's say theoretically on your turn, if you have 2 renovations face down, you could activate Ghostrick Dullahan, go into Alucard, and throw the materials under Alucard. Then on your next turn, you could go into Angel of Mischief, and then, or go into a So Cute boss, and then go into Angel of Mischief, and then your Angel of Mischief will have something like 5 materials, which will be very nice, but it's still just not enough to make this a very plausible card. The next thing that really does make it very plausible, something that you could keep in your deck, is the fact that you get to search and add or activate a new field spell card, and then the old field spell just goes into your hand. So very, very nice to do that. It's basically like a walking terraforming or metaverse, and the fact that those 2 cards are limited to 1, and then Ghostrick Renovation is untouched on the ban list. Like this is like the new version of terraforming. So it's the specific version of terraforming for this deck. So very nice. Moving on to spot number 2, we have Ghostrick Vanish. So Vanish, it's a needed staple in your deck. Some people run it at 2, some run it at 1. I usually run it at 3, but so nice to be able to stop targeting effects and to stop your monsters from getting destroyed by card effects or any of your Ghostrick cards. So the fact that it specifies Ghostrick cards, not just monsters, is very nice, and what probably puts it up to spot number 2 on my list. And the fact that you're almost always going to have a Ghostrick monster in hand, since Lantern, Mary, and Spectre you should have at least 1 copy of those in your hand. So next, moving on into spot number 1 is Ghostrick Scare. Easily the most versatile, most usable card. Any deck or any duel that you're using with Ghostricks, you will always use Ghostrick Scare at least once, as long as you see it. So there's so much to say about this card, but it combos so well with Doll. You know, if you flip all of your monsters and Doll is face down, then you get to flip everybody back face down next turn, and you can get all of your flip effects off again next turn. Going off with the effect monsters, you can activate the simultaneous effects of Jiang Shi and Skeleton. So say you have 5 face downs, activate Scare, and hopefully you have a Doll, a Skeleton, and a Jiang Shi. So you can theoretically search with your Jiang Shi, mill 5 with your Skeleton, and then all of your monsters will get flipped back face down thanks to your Doll. So very great card. Also, the fact that it does flip your opponent's stuff face down. If you're going for like the Ghostrick Knight lock, then your Scare will help with that. It helps with Alucard, since Alucard destroys face downs, and then Warwolf, who does burn damage for every face down card that's on the field. And lastly, it just helps with beatdown decks. If you can't get over a monster that's on your opponent's field, flip it face down with this, and then you can attack directly and hopefully beat down your opponent. The unfortunate thing is that this card was absolutely insane back in XZ format, and with links it's just a little less good, but hopefully in the future we'll get some new support that makes this card still relevant and can stay in the deck. As for the XZs, I think that the XZs and the traps were the next hardest for me to do, but for spot number 4, for the XZs, I'm going with Dullahan, and there are no bad cards on this side of the list. So ranking in at number 4 is Dullahan. He gains attack, but he can usually only get to about 2,000. He gains 200 for each Ghostrick card on the field. So that does include like your field spell cards, and if you have Ghostrick go around face up. But still, beefing him up isn't really your main priority, and it's nice to have your opponent's attack, but still just not the greatest XZ card to have, but still really nice. His second effect for recovering from the graveyard is what keeps him so powerful, and what kind of hurt me to put him at spot number 4 in the deck. Moving on is the next card, a lot like him, Alucard. He also can recover a Ghostrick card from the graveyard during the, or when he's sent from the graveyard, which very nice to know that he doesn't miss timing or anything when it comes to Link or XYZs. So if you activate the effect of Angel of Mischief to detach an effect, then you can, or detach a card for its effect, then you can add Search with Angel of Mischief, and then Alucard or Dullahan will add the card back. So very nice, and then Alucard can destroy a set card. So if you're afraid that your opponent has a Mirror Force face down and you're playing the beatdown or something, then Alucard is just something nice. Or if you can flip your opponent's monster that's really giving you a hard time, if you can flip it face down with Scared, then Alucard can come in and clean them up. So moving on, this was a card that I had originally at spot 4, but I had to bump it up to spot number 2 because I feel like in today's game, we're underutilizing So Cute Boss. It's a card that can potentially lock your opponent out of their extra monster zone, which is just like super insane if you could possibly do it. There's just a few potential drawbacks that it needs to stay face up, or you have to have some sort of a face up Ghostrick monster. So the unfortunate thing is that it doesn't synergize with Doll, which again is a big no-no for me. But then again, you use Doll to XZ summon with it, so you'll already be down 2 Dolls essentially. So if you have the third one in your deck, then you just can't summon that. Or you just can't utilize its effect to flip everybody face down. So that's why I put it in spot number 2. For spot number 1, I had to give it to Angel of Mischief. Such a neat card. I remember when this came out, and I was like, hold on. I already thought Ghostricks were really cool, and then the fact that they just got, like, they randomly acquired a win condition, I thought was so cool, because, like, back in the day, the only win conditions was, like, Exodia, Final Countdown, and like Destiny Board, and then they're like, hey, let's make Angel of Mischief. So really nice that it has 2 different effects, one that can search and add to hand, or the second to add a card and add a material onto it. Once you get to 10 materials, you automatically win the duel. And again, I already mentioned this, but it helps Alucard and Dullahan's effect go off, and it can just be a big defense wall that your opponent sometimes has a little, or at least back in the day, it used to be a big defense wall. Your opponent couldn't get over the 2,500 attack. You know, say they had one monster that could get over it, you could just use Ghostrick Scare, flip it face down, and then you still have your defense set for your next turn. So, and lastly, it does add 2,000 attack when you combo it with Ghoul, which is just insane, because Ghostricks have just such small attacks, but if you can swarm the field and get the beatdown version going, then this card really will help, adding 2,000 to that. Okay, and now as for the monsters, I'm going to do spots number 15 and 14 together. So spot number 15 going to Yeti, and 14 going to Witch. So now Yeti is basically a walking Lantern and Vanish in one, but only protects one of your Ghostrick monsters. And then Ghostrick Witch is basically like a walking Ghostrick Scare. So they're just really not needed in the deck. If you're going to want those effects to go off, you might as well just have a Vanish and a Scare in your deck. So I just think that those 2 cards are just not as needed as the rest. Moving on into spot number 13, Necco Museum. I hope I'm saying that right. Basically, whenever a level 4 or higher monster is normal summoned or special summoned, you can put it into face down defense, and there has to be another Ghostrick monster to activate and resolve that effect. It's a nice effect, and it can combo well in the Night Lock, but still just not really as important as the rest of these cards. And the fact that you have to keep your Ghostrick monsters face up, you know, if this is a level 2, you would think that you would want to have Doll in the deck, so you could go into So Cute Boss. But cards that need stuff to stay face up just do not synergize well with Doll. Moving on into spot number 12 is Ghostrick Yukiona. So Yukiona is it does have a really interesting effect, and it kind of goes in with the whole Nightlock thing where you can keep your opponent's monsters face down. But basically, when it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can keep your opponent's monster in face down defense, can't change its battle position ever, which is a very nice permanent effect. The unfortunate thing is that if your opponent knows that this is on the field, they're not going to attack into it. So you would have to suicide, or this is a defense card that you have on the field while you don't have your field spell. So because if you have your field spell, then this effect will never go off because they won't be attacking it face down. So it's just sort of a card that doesn't synergize well with the rest. You want to assume at all times that you have your field spell, and this just doesn't work well with it unless you're just going to bash into it on purpose. So next, going on into spot number 11 is Warwolf. Now, Warwolf is a card that I tested a little bit with the beatdown version. Otherwise, you can make an entire burn version with it. It's just the unfortunate part is that his effect just does not usually accumulate into enough. The fact that he does 100 burn damage for every set card that's face up that's on the field. So he's essentially your first flip of your turn instead of flipping like Jiang Shi or Skeleton. But I mean, and he is a 14 attack beater, so he could be a little bit higher on this list, but overall his burn damage effect just does not contribute to much. Moving on next into Jack Frost. In my opinion, Jack Frost has always just been like Lantern Light. Like if he's like the Diet Coke version of Ghostrick Lantern. So he can stop a direct attack and flip your opponent's monster face down. Again, a little more needed for the Ghostrick Knight version, but for the way that most people play the deck nowadays, Jack Frost is just not really an essential card in my opinion. Going on into spot number 9 is Ghostrick Ghoul. I believe that he's a very good card, and at this point in the list now, every card that's on the list is a card that's useful and I've utilized in my decks at least once. So Ghostrick Ghoul is your essential card to have in the beatdown version. So he is very nice. It's unfortunate that the rest of your cards can't attack while he's on or when he uses his effect, but the fact that you can get your monsters, if you've seen my live duels, you'll see that in my one video I got Ghostrick Mummy up to about 6,900 attack, which when you have monsters with this low of attack, to get anything bounced up that high is very nice. And then speaking of whom, going on next is Ghostrick Mummy. I really do like him at spot number 8. He's very nice for getting that additional normal summon every turn, but the fact that he reduces you to only special summoning dark monsters does hurt you at times. So if you are trying to go into Saryuja or something, then Ghostrick Mummy can sometimes hurt you. Going on to spot number 7 now would be Ghostrick Spectre. Now Spectre is very nice. Sometimes it's a little bit situational. You need to, your monster has to get destroyed by a card effect, but by a card effect or by battle, but getting that draw off is very nice. So that's why I do have it at spot number 7, just because getting that extra draw is always very nice. Now another card that is very good for adding cards to your hand is Ghostrick Stein. He might be a little high on this list. Some people might argue with me, but when you're playing the beatdown version, Ghostrick Stein is a card that you do need to consider having in the deck. Adding a spell or trap card is extremely essential, and like you can get that in on different ways, like with your Angel of Mischief or something, but I really do like Stein. He's a 1600 attack beater, so he's the strongest non-XZ Ghostrick monster, so he does need to be put into consideration when ranking or when putting your deck together. So moving on now, we have spot number 5, Ghostrick Lantern. Now Lantern, as I've already kind of glossed over, is the best version of the stopping battle monster hand traps. Essentially, you can stop a direct attack, or if you're face up Ghostrick monsters, so cough cough your Angel of Mischief, if you've got that face up on the field, or if you are going for some of like the lock effects and you need to keep a Ghostrick monster face up on the field, Lantern will help you to keep those monsters on the field because it can stop attacks on your Ghostrick monsters. Moving on to spot number 4, we have Ghostrick Skeleton. Now, I really wish that I could have put him higher up on this list, because you guys know that I absolutely love Ghostrick Skeleton. He's such a card that you can apply in every Ghostrick deck, but there are other cards that are a little bit better than him, and I'll get to them next. But Skeleton is just, he has such an unheard of effect. The fact that you can get 6 mills on your opponent consistently every turn, or working up to 6, is just insane. And when people like to play their decks in a consistent manner at 40 cards per deck, that means that if they're heavily searching through their deck like most decks do, and then you can get his effect off like 3 or 4 times, you're probably going to be pretty close to milling and winning the duel. So I really do like him, and the fact that he's a 1200 attack monster does give him an excuse to find his way into the beatdown version, and even in like the burn version as a backup. So I really do like playing him a lot, and he can find his way into every deck. Moving on to spot number 3, Jiang Shi. Jiang Shi is just like your every turn let's search through the deck card. So nice. And even pairing off into spot number 2 with Doll, the one thing that Jiang Shi has going over Doll is the fact that Jiang Shi can add your level 1s even when your board gets full, and Doll does sometimes, its second part of its effect does stop being useful once your board gets established. But going on into Doll in spot number 2, it's just so nice having all of your opponent's monsters getting flipped face down, and then special summoning directly from the deck to field is just an effect that's always good. You always want to utilize it when you can. So Doll and Jiang Shi kind of flip-flop, but the fact that Doll has that added effect of flipping everybody face down, that way you can go back into your effects again, because that's just a huge bonus. Because one thing that you'll notice when you're playing Ghostricks, if you activate a scare and you just have a Jiang Shi and Skeleton and you don't have a Doll on board, then you kind of get into a problem where your next turn you start off and your monsters are already face up, so you don't want to reutilize their effects again, because otherwise you'll end your turn with them face up. So you just have to put them face down and pass. Doll really helps you reset your board. Moving on into spot number 1, I had to give it to Ghostrick Mary, just because it's so nice that you can, anytime you take any damage, it doesn't have to be battle damage. You get to special summon directly from the deck, and that is just so good. It pairs so well with your Ghostrick Parade. I just can't explain it enough that this card helps you go into so many of your combos depending on what your situation is. So if you're sitting there and you really could use a mill, you can go into your Skeleton. Or if you are trying to keep your combos going and you want to go into your Doll, that might be your next best option. So Doll and Mary again here could kind of flip-flop, but I really wanted to give it to Doll because it's such a really cool combo. The fact that you can search off with Parade, then when you take the damage, you can go into Mary. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I hope it wasn't too long for you guys. I hope you guys stuck around. Thank you very much for Ghostrick Week. The giveaway drawing will be going on later tonight, so please stick around if you want to check out my Instagram. I'll probably be videoing live while it's happening, so if you guys want to check it out there. And that's also another way to get another entry into the giveaway, is to follow the Instagram. So just check out Common Collector on Instagram and you should find me. So, and I'll try to put some links in the description for other ways you can find me. So thanks, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye.